Most athletes spend their whole lives chasing the Olympics. Alysa Liu spent 2 years running away from it. She retired at 16, went to college, trekked to Everest, dyed her hair, and told the skating world she was done forever. But here is the question nobody could answer. What happens when the most talented skater of her generation finally stops skating for everyone else and starts skating for herself? TD Garden in Boston was packed to the roof on the night of March 28, 2025. 20,000 people were on their feet, and the noise was so loud you could feel it in your chest. A 19-year-old in a golden dress was spinning across the ice, and when she hit her final pose and the music stopped, the arena absolutely exploded. Alysa Liu threw both hands over her head, looked at her coaches, and shouted the only word she could find. "What?" And then she said it again. "What?" Because she genuinely could not believe what had just happened. She had just become the first American woman to win the figure skating world title in 19 years. The scoreboard said 222.97. The crowd said the rest. To understand why that moment was so shocking, you have to go back to the beginning. Alysa Liu grew up in the Bay Area of California, and from the very start it was clear she was not like anyone else. At just 12 years old, she became the youngest female skater in history to land a triple axel. At 13, she became the youngest US national champion ever, breaking a record that had stood for more than 2 decades. At 14, she became the first American woman to land a quadruple jump in competition. She was doing things on the ice that grown women with decades of training could not do. The skating world had a name for what she was: the chosen one. The girl who was going to save American figure skating and bring it back to the top of the world. But behind all those records, a young girl was quietly suffocating. The 5 a.m. wake-up calls never stopped. The homeschooling in the back of a car never stopped. The pressure of the internet watching her every move never stopped. By the time the 2022 Beijing Olympics arrived, she had nothing left to give. She finished 6th and walked off that ice knowing she was done. Weeks later, she pulled her skates off for the last time, shoved them in a closet, and chose herself instead. And the biggest question in American figure skating became whether the prodigy who walked away could ever find her way back. The skates went into the closet and the door clicked shut. For the first time in her life, Alysa Liu had nowhere to be at 5 in the morning. No coach waiting, no ice to cut, no judges to impress. Just a 16-year-old girl who finally had the chance to find out who she actually was when nobody was watching. What she did with that freedom surprised everyone. She packed a bag and went on road trips with friends who had never heard of a Salchow or a Lutz. She enrolled at UCLA and sat in real classrooms with real students and had the kind of normal conversations she had missed for nearly a decade. She traveled all the way to Nepal and trekked to the base camp of Mount Everest, breathing thin mountain air at over 17,000 feet, as far from a skating rink as a person could possibly get. She played volleyball, she played tennis, she dyed her hair in bold raccoon stripes and got piercings that would have made a traditional skating judge cover their eyes. She was living the life the sport had taken from her, and she felt no guilt about any of it. The people who had built their hopes on her were confused. Some said she had left too early. Some said she was throwing away a gift that most skaters would trade everything to have. But Alysa never wavered. She never once looked back and said she had made a mistake. Because for her, walking away was not giving up. It was survival. The sport had consumed her childhood whole. It had handed her record after record before she was old enough to understand what records even meant. Choosing to stop was the bravest thing she had ever done on or off the ice. Then came the ski trip in early 2024. She was flying down a slope with friends, the wind sharp on her face and the speed building beneath her feet, and something in her brain quietly switched back on. She missed that feeling, the pure, clean rush of moving fast and being fully alive in a single moment. She found a public rink soon after, laced up her old, worn-out skates just to see, and tried a double axel. She landed it clean. That was the spark. But this time the rules were completely different. She returned to her coaches, Philip Di Guglielmo and Massimo Scali, and moved her training to Lakewood Ice in California, building everything from scratch on her own schedule. No one had called her back. No federation had convinced her. She had chosen this, which meant for the first time in her life, the ice belonged to her. Nobody was talking about Alysa Liu when the 2024-25 season began. The skating world had moved on. Amber Glenn was the reigning Grand Prix champion. Isabeau Levito was the reigning world silver medalist. Those were the American women everyone was watching. Alysa was just the comeback kid, the girl who had been gone for 2 years, trying to find her footing on ice that no longer felt like home. The early results showed exactly how hard the road back would be. At the 2024 CS Budapest Trophy in October, her first competition since March 2022, she under-rotated a jump combination in the short program. She was rusty. She was rebuilding. She finished the event outside the top spots and quietly kept working. There were no viral moments, no standing ovations. Just a young woman grinding through early morning sessions at Lakewood Ice, blade after blade, landing after landing, learning to trust herself again. By January 2025, she had fought her way to a second-place finish at the US Championships behind Glenn. She was named to the world team, but she was the lowest ranked of the 3 Americans heading to Boston. When the press talked about Team USA's chances at the World Championships, her name came last. The story going into TD Garden was about Glenn and Levito. Alysa was the footnote. Then she stepped onto the ice on March 26th for her short program, and everything changed. She posted a personal best score of 74.58 and held the lead as skater after skater around her faltered. The crowd inside TD Garden began to feel something shifting. 2 days later, she came back for the free skate and the building was electric. When the first notes of Donna Summer's MacArthur Park filled the arena, Alysa launched into her opening triple flip and landed it clean. The blades hit the ice with a sharp crack and the crowd surged forward. She followed it with a triple Lutz triple toe loop combination, kept her footing, kept smiling, kept performing like the scoreboard did not exist. When her total of 222.97 flashed up and she realized she had won, she did not give a polished speech. She just spun around with her hands over her head and shouted what every single person watching was already thinking. She told NBC Sports afterward that she genuinely did not know how she had come back to be world champion. That raw, unfiltered shock was the moment that traveled around the world, because it was real, and real is something this sport does not always get to see. She was no longer just a comeback story. She was the favorite for Milan, and for the first time in her life, she was walking straight into that pressure with a smile on her face. Then Donna Summer's MacArthur Park filled the arena and Alysa Liu came alive. She hit her opening jump clean. The blades sang against the ice and the crowd responded immediately, their roar building with every passing second. She moved through her program like someone who had nothing to fear and everything to share, connecting with the audience in a way that made the arena feel less like a competition venue and more like a stage built just for her. Her only blemish was a minor deduction on her flying camel spin mid-program. Everything else was clean, joyful, and completely alive. When she struck her final pose and the music cut out, the building came completely apart. Her score of 226.79 was a career best. It was enough. Nakai and Sakamoto both made small errors in their programs and could not catch her. Alysa Liu had won the Olympic gold medal, the first American woman to do it since Sarah Hughes in Salt Lake City in 2002. Sarah Hughes herself was sitting in the building to watch it happen. In the kiss and cry, Alysa was laughing and crying at the same time, her coaches wrapping their arms around her as the scores confirmed what the crowd already knew. Later, when the reporters asked her what the gold meant, she gave them the most Alysa Liu answer possible. "Medals do not validate me," she said. "That is not how I feel validation." 3-time Olympic gymnastics champion Ali Reisman watched from home and said that seeing Alysa on that ice felt healing, that she looked so free and so joyful, like a little kid who had just remembered why they fell in love with something in the first place. That is the thing about Alysa Liu that no scoreboard will ever be able to capture. She did not win the Olympics by becoming the skater everyone had tried to build her into. She won by becoming exactly who she chose to be, and that is the most powerful jump in the history of this sport. The one no judge can score, no coach can teach, and nobody can ever take away from you.